everyone, and welcome to Art with Nathan. And I know what you're thinking, do all television artists have afros? Only the good ones. So we've been drawing still lifes, simple objects, and last week we looked at how would we shade a single coffee cup, and this week we're going to consolidate everything we've learned into a single image. And if you look, what I have here is a really traditional still life. And I understand still lifes are boring, but this is something, it's kind of a rite of passage for an artist to draw a still life, to understand the principles. Now, think of this as like the first step to your journey to really making some cool art. In terms of baseball, this is first base. You want to hit a home run, you got to get through this one. So, I mean, maybe you are excited by a milk jug and some fruit. Who knows, you know? All right, so let's get at it. So the first thing we're going to do on a white page is your center line. Remember, we want to create a grid from which we can mark all the positions. I'm going to work quite quickly through this, just so you can watch. So I'm going to decide, here's the top of my, let's say that's the top of the grapes right over there, and so that's the bottom of my milk jug right here. So then I kind of have an idea. This is where everything's going to happen. Okay, keep the lines nice and loose. Also look at how I'm holding it. I'm not holding it like a pencil, like I'm writing. That's a very controlled way of using a drawing implement. I want to keep it loose. I've pinched it between my forefinger and my thumb, and the further away the tip of your drawing point from your hand, the more looser it is. So you want to start off like that, nice and loose. You don't want to be too controlled. Okay. So I'm just going to start with basic shapes. Remember my north, east, south lines to start constructing the milk jug. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is just divide everything up into its basic shapes. Draw as much lines as you need. I think in terms of art and art practice, drawing, this is like an exercise. So you're working up towards to do something different. This isn't the thing that you're going to be doing. This is the workout. So I'll actually divide my shapes into geometric shapes. You might feel more comfortable doing it more rounder. There's not many YouTube videos out there of people painting something in real time or drawing something in real time. There's a lot of stuff out there where it's sped up, or it cuts away and then it's a bit further along, which can be useful. But what I find works best is watching someone draw in real time. You know, it takes a while, but you learn so much more watching it happen. So what I'm doing here is, you see these three grapes. I'm not drawing them individually. I'm breaking it up into a single shape. So you'll see that this line here will be in that line there. And what that does, it just helps my mind simplify the shapes. And I see I just actually need to move it a little bit more across the jug. Okay. And the same with this top bunch of grapes. I'm going to simplify it into a shape. So I'm going to almost delineate it. Let me get my pen so you can see, like this. All right. You see that I'm drawing from a photo. Again, it's always better to draw from life. It just makes sense for you guys to see what I'm drawing right next to the paper. Okay. So you'll see I've skipped a lot of steps that I have taught in the past lessons, and it's just because a lot of the ideas around measurement and drawing construction lines and reference lines, it's become very innate to me. I feel like I kind of go on how the drawing feels as well. So another thing to take note of is you'll see this grape is larger than these ones. These ones are further back, so they're smaller. Remember, you can always correct as you go along. There's the edge of the table right there. So look what I've done here. I've drawn a line going straight through this grape. I'm treating the objects as if they are made out of glass. I can see straight through them. This helps me just structure the objects correctly. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my bunches of grapes, and I'm just going to delineate each grape. I know I said I'm drawing this in real time, but I am drawing it faster than is necessary, just so it isn't too boring. It takes a lot of patience to be good at drawing, a lot of time dedicated to it, and it's one of those things where you don't have to force your own style too. It kind of comes like handwriting. So while you're drawing your boring still life at home, just remember, greater things will come. This drawing is 100% vegan. In case you guys are wondering. For all those meat eaters, next week we'll draw a steak. All right. Okay, so I'm at a point where I feel happy with the structure. I might just check a few things. Yeah, I think it's good. One thing that's going to be very difficult are these ribs in the milk jug. So what I'm not going to do is draw every single one of them. That is a bad idea. Now, if you're into photorealism, and you want to do that, go for that. You have to grid it, you have to measure it. It would be a very precise technical chore, but I'm going to show you how you could replicate something like that. That's one of the things with drawing, is that we don't have to reproduce every detail. What we're trying to do is trying to find a mark that represents something that we see in real life. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and also the little dimples on the pear as well. There's certain tricks. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to tone the entire milk jug just with one single tone. Just for now. All right. Give it a nice, smooth it out. The lovely thing about charcoal is that it's just so fluid and soft. As you can manipulate it quite easy with your fingers. So before I do the milk jug, I'm just going to address each object. So the grapes and the pear, in terms of blocking out the different light regions. So what I mean by that, if you look at the pear, we have this very bright shape over here, all the light's hitting it from the top. So what I'm going to do is treat that as if it was another structure in my drawing, and just draw out where the light hits it. Just reinforce that line. I'm going to give the entire dark green just a single tone. So this is called blocking in. I'm going to smooth that out. Also cast the shadow at the bottom. Very important to remember to draw your cast shadows. Otherwise the objects look like they're just floating nowhere. Just correcting my outline a little bit there. Not quite right. Okay. So I'm going to do the same with the other objects. I'm going to address each one in terms of light and dark. The shaded areas, the dark areas, I'm going to draw in structurally, as if they were a structure in the drawing. And I'm going to give them just a general tone. So last week we talked about tones in terms of numbers, 0 being the brightest, 10 being the darkest. So maybe like a 5 tone. Let's just lighten this up. And what this helps me do, it helps me think more clearly about the drawing in terms of light and dark, and strategize around how to go forward. Okay. So what I'm doing here is that if you see these grapes here are out of focus in the picture. It's not necessarily how you would see it with an eye. And to kind of visually communicate that there are grapes there, I'm just trying to use stronger lines. So I'm using what you call artistic license to tell the viewer there are grapes here too. So suggesting that. And so often we have to make those visual decisions with our artwork and almost disregard what we see for what would work best for the drawing. No, that's not bad drawing, that's actually good drawing, making that decision. So often artists would do things like elongate limbs and warp objects in their paintings in order to just works better visually, and that's part of the art. Okay. The wonderful thing about drawing is that it's so immediate. Anyone who's ever painted or tried to make an image any other way, it takes time. But drawing, really, it's so quick and so fresh, and it doesn't lie at all. Every mark you make represents who you are. It's a part of your totality. It's a part of how you're feeling at the present and how you see in the world. So even though we're doing a boring still life, I'm creating a visual document of my current state of mind. And then all of a sudden, fruit is not so boring, and milk jugs. And you get lost in it. It uses a tremendous amount of sort of your mind to be able to draw, because you're constantly problem solving, you're thinking about what's next, how do I go about it. Okay. And so even if the drawing doesn't work out, remember, failure is always an option. Definitely learn something. Just softening out the edges. It's this constant dance between structure and form. Structure and light. Also, your aim shouldn't be to make something beautiful. That should be, sometimes it's part and parcel of the art, but it should be, you want to make a strong drawing, you want to make a statement, something that stands out, and that could be anything. So I'm just strengthening the shadows on this side of the jug. See, the light falls just down the bottom here. So there's a slight shadow. So I'm going to strengthen the shadows in the pear. If you look here, it's completely dark. It's just as dark as the edge of the table. So it's like a 10. So I'm going to, again, draw that in as if it were a structure in the pear. And I'm just going to go as dark as I can. There we go. We'll continue grading the pear in terms of its tones. And there's a slightly darker shape over here. Not as dark. And then over here is also quite dark where the stalk comes out. Another thing I've noticed is that there's a reflected light at the bottom of the pear here. So how am I going to achieve that is I actually have an eraser today that can break. Okay, cool. So what you can do with your erasers, and if you watched a few episodes ago, I had this unbreakable eraser, is you just break it into these little wedge shapes, little sharp points, and it makes it easier to use to bring out different tones. So I'm going to bring out this reflected light at the bottom of the pear. And you can blend with your finger. You can use a piece of paper or some tissue. You want that smooth transition between light and dark. You also want to be super delicate and careful not to destroy or muddy up your tones. You want to keep them fresh. So really going to work on the edges of those areas that we've identified as light and darker and dark. Smooth them out. You also don't want them to look too geometric as well. There's a nice highlight right at the top of my... Yeah, so if you see this highlight here, so now I have a problem. The white of my paper is so white that even if I erase it, you're just gonna see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna tone this area up here. Just so I can have that highlight stand out. So I'm looking very carefully where the lines are now. Another very important point to remember when you're making art or drawing is that subject matter isn't content. So for example, the content of the subject matter may be a bowl of fruit, but the content isn't necessarily that. I could be saying a whole range of things by what I'm drawing. Okay, so I'm going to just bring out the light a bit more on the side of the pear. And then we bring out that highlight as I promised on the top. There we go. Got to work a bit to get that white back. There we go. Okay. That sound used to drive my students crazy. I liked it that it did that. Okay. So, looking at the pear now, I'd say it's about done in terms of what you can do with charcoal, with the time that we have here. And you want to look at each object as you finish it, and you want to keep the tone roughly the same, the register the same throughout the entire drawing. You don't want to have something too light and too dark. So I'm going to use my pear as a reference point now for all the rest of my drawing. So this will be as light as I go, and that will be as dark as I'm willing to go. Okay. All right, let's stick with the fruit. So you'll see I'm reverted to my natural way of drawing, which is hatching, okay, but I'm smoothing it off with my finger as I go. So I'm slowly grading in each tone. I don't necessarily have to erase each highlight in. I can work around each one. These are decent sized grapes. Okay. What I want to achieve with this small bunch of grapes here is just suggest them. I don't really want to flesh them out too much. Not everything has to be equal focus. It's so important in your drawings that you not only draw what you see, but also just celebrate the medium that you're drawing with. And charcoal is this wonderful, expressive medium. So I love to leave some of the lines, some of the smudgings. The first thing I want people to see is when they look at one of my drawings, like, yep, that's a drawing. I'm not trying to create any illusions. Right, that's the kind of drawings that I like. So Careful not to smudge things too much. Otherwise you're going to have this very grey, muddy drawing. You want a nice sense of contrast between light and dark. All right. Okay, so like I promised, I'm going to show you now how to create this ribbon at the bottom of the joke. And again, it's not drawing everything in detail. It's just it's trying to find a similar mark that looks like that. So let's get at it. If I look at the picture, you'll see the light does fall darker along this line. So I'm just going to just make it a little bit darker over here. So now I'm getting distracted with the shadow under the grape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break off a clean piece of eraser here. I'm just going to erase equal lines in like a rhythmic pattern. Let's use a bigger one. All the way across. Just to kind of get the feel. And if you look, the lighter shades are wider and they get narrower coming in closer to the pair. So I'm suggesting the detail. One of the things when we were taught how to draw houses is you don't draw every brick. You just you just draw some of the bricks. You find a pattern and the eye does the rest. So I'm just strengthening the lines in between. And another way that I'd suggest it is just the outline. It's like a zigzag. Pattern. Now I might have to repeat this process a few times until I'm convinced that it's working. And there's a highlight going down the middle. So what I've done now is I've exhausted the paper in terms of how much I can erase at this point. That's fine. Okay, cool. Stick. Okay. So a big part of the demonstration today was just to show that using the principles that I've taught over the last few weeks, you can use them as a guideline to produce a competent drawing. And it's something that I would suggest you go at home now and try and bring everything together. It might take a few tries. If you feel frustrated, don't be precious about your drawing. Tear that thing up, throw it across the room, start again. It's really lethargic. So your homework for the week is to go and try this. Maybe you can find a more exciting still life than what I did today. But don't forget to like and subscribe and share. I'll see you guys next week.